And not even the Orthodox Easter could bring a halt to the fighting in Ukraine. On Sunday, Ukrainian forces said Russia had unleashed an almost 100 shells in the past 24 hours around Bakhmut, with around 30 firefights taking place. Ukrainian and Russian fighters are battling street by street and house by house for control of what's now a pretty decimated city.
And there was, of course, little joy on this Easter holiday. 130 Ukrainians are now free after a prisoner exchange with Russia, so that at least is some good news.
But there are many Ukrainians who may never come home. At the start of the war, they fled in the only direction that they could, and that was into Russia.
Now they're living thousands of miles away in Russia's Far East. CNN's Scott McLean established contact with some of them who describe their lives now and why Ukrainians may not want them back.
In the chaos of battle in Mariupol in eastern Ukraine, the civilians caught in the crossfire had few good options. They could either escape to Russia or take their chances as the war intensified. Many of those who fled toward Russia were encouraged to live and work in the Far East. From Rostov, a 4,000-mile train journey to the edge of Siberia and a town just a stone's throw from North Korea. These are some of the first arrivals stepping off government-chartered trains a year ago.
Why does Russia want those people there?
That's a great question. One is a propaganda benefit, positioning these people as somehow willingly seeking citizenship in Russia. The second benefit is that Russia simply needs bodies. In many parts of the country, they don't have enough citizens to make those municipalities function.
This hotel in the coastal town of Wrangel was where new arrivals were put up at first. CNN reached several of them through a Telegram group chat run by local volunteers, keeping a log of resident requests from baby food and toys to medicine. Anyone dissatisfied with their stay is told sarcastically to take their complaints to Moscow, the Kremlin, Putin. The Russian government has long been eager to populate its resource-rich Far East, and the state has tried several experiments to attract settlers, including those from ex-Soviet states. It now promises fleeing Ukrainians cash, housing assistance, citizenship, and even free land, though two people told CNN they were struggling to get the rent reimbursement they say the government had promised. Natalia was struggling to find any housing at all, hardly enthused by her new reality.
Nothing's changed except the place, but I no longer have a job that I love and a home that I love.
New arrivals quickly had their Ukrainian passports swapped for Russian ones. Natalia figures she can't go back.
Because we are criminals there. Because those who left for Russia are immediately considered criminals by the Ukrainian authorities. So I'm forbidden to go there.
At this point, the absence of clarity is the biggest problem. There is understandably within Ukraine a absolute outrage against those who are perceived as collaborators. But the fact of the matter is that we are dealing here with a civilian population that was seeking refuge in a time of war.
Under the terms of Russia's relocation program, the Ukrainians are required to stay for at least 3 years. One woman, Marina, told CNN that after that, we will see. It depends on the job and material well-being. So far, it's not very easy. Another, Valeria, said plainly that her family will stay in Russia, and I don't even want to think about Ukraine. In a statement, the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office told CNN that safety and security of Ukrainian citizens is a major priority, and that for many, the only safe passage was through Russia. Of course, they are not considered collaborators. They need to get to a third country and address a local Ukrainian consulate. It will issue them Ukrainian documents to return to Ukraine. But for those who remain in Russia long term, the future is less clear. By Ukrainian law, people who publicly deny occupation or who call for support for Russian actions are considered collaborators. International law prohibits forcible transfers of people. Russia says more than 5 million Ukrainians have arrived in Russia since the full-scale war began. And while Ukraine says many were forcibly deported, some, like Oksana, said they went willingly.
We were saving our own lives.
Though they had few other options.
And Scott McLean joins us now. Scott, did any of the individuals that you and your team spoke to, did they tell you that they'd been forcibly deported?
Yeah, so no one that we spoke to told us that. They all insisted that they had gone by choice. But also remember that we're talking about a group of people that is by and large working class. They speak Russian. They have no ties to Europe. And so going to Russia for most people was simply the path of least resistance. It is also very unlikely that anyone that we spoke to will be going back to Ukraine anytime soon. They are allowed to go. They're free to leave if they wanted to. But if they stay for less than 3 years in Russia, they'll have to pay back the state benefits that they've gotten, which is out of reach for most people. So now the big question mark is what happens after 3 years? And by then, will Ukraine even want them back? It's also impossible to know just how freely people felt that they could speak with us, but you got the impression from some of them that they were on the side of Russia. One woman told us that it was the Ukrainians who were responsible for what happened in Mariupol. Another said that she wanted to go back, but only if it was firmly in the hands of the Russians by then. Other people had more nuanced views or didn't want to talk about the war. I should also say quickly that we did also reach out to the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs, but we didn't get any responses to our questions from them.
Scott, thanks so much for joining us.